I never imagined life would be like this. When I married Nnamdi, I believed our love would be enough to overcome any challenge. But there we were, 6 years into our marriage, with everyone's eyes on me, whispering about my inability to conceive. His mother, Mama Nnamdi especially. Her words stung every time she called me the barren one. She was a woman who had no patience for weakness, and every time she spoke, her tone cut deeper than any knife. "I'm sure you have some evil spirit haunting you, Adanna," she'd say, clucking her tongue in a way that sent a chill down my spine. "You're a disgrace to my son, always with that empty belly." I fought back my tears, but it was hard. So very hard. Nnamdi, my ever-loving husband, tried his best to protect me from her. He would often stand up for me, but nothing seemed to change. Mama Nnamdi was relentless in her criticism, as if her harsh words could somehow make me conceive. I couldn't help but feel defeated, especially when I saw the pity in Nnamdi's eyes. But he was always gentle with me, always there when I needed him, always holding me when the weight of the world felt like it was crushing me. Then one day, I realized I was late. I hesitated to take a test at first, afraid to be disappointed again. But when I finally did, it was positive. The shock, the joy, the relief, it overwhelmed me. I couldn't wait to tell Nnamdi. When I broke the news to him, his face lit up like I'd never seen before. He didn't act like it was just a passing moment of happiness. No, he treated me differently. He pampered me, did all the house chores, and even brought me my favorite meals. It was like I was a queen in his eyes. For the first time in years, I felt the warmth of his love, and it felt genuine. Mama Nnamdi, too, softened her attitude. The insults stopped. Now, she showered me with praise. I had become the answer to her prayers, and I couldn't help but bask in the unexpected warmth. For once, it seemed like everything would be okay. But I had no idea that something darker was brewing just below the surface, something that would change everything forever. My pregnancy felt like a dream at first, a dream that made the past 6 years of struggle seem like a distant memory. Nnamdi's love for me grew even more intense. He spoiled me, took care of everything, and didn't let me lift a finger. My belly grew round, and with it, so did the whispers of joy. It was as though the entire world had been waiting for this moment, as though my worth was finally validated. Mama Nnamdi, once my harshest critic, became my greatest supporter. She'd rub my belly and smile in ways I had never seen before. "Finally," she'd say, "God has blessed my son with a child. This one will be special. This one will be the one to carry on our family name." I never questioned her sudden affection. I wanted to believe it was genuine. For once, she didn't look at me with disdain, but with the warmth I had always longed for. But the more I basked in it, the more I began to realize that things were not as they seemed. Something in Nnamdi's eyes, in his unspoken silence, troubled me. It was like he was holding a secret, something he wasn't ready to share. But I couldn't bring myself to ask, what if I was imagining it? Then came the day I gave birth to Chisholm, a healthy baby boy. I held him in my arms, tears streaming down my face as I whispered promises of love and protection. Mama Nnamdi was ecstatic. She took the baby from me as though he was her own. Nnamdi stood by, a proud father, his eyes filled with emotion. But even in that moment, when everything seemed perfect, I couldn't shake off the unease. It lingered like a shadow at the corner of my mind, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Days passed, and life moved on. Nnamdi was always by my side, helping with Chisholm, making sure I was comfortable. But one afternoon, when I was alone at home with Chisholm, I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated before answering. It was Emeka. His grin was wide, but there was something unsettling about it. "You've been looking so sweet these days, Adanna," he said, stepping past me without waiting for an invitation. Nnamdi is one lucky man. I felt a knot in my stomach. Emeka had always been the playful friend, the one who joked around too much. But today, there was something different about him. His words felt heavy, as though there was more he wasn't saying. "Emeka, what are you talking about?" I asked, trying to remain calm. He ignored my question and walked over to where I was sitting. "You know, Adanna," he continued, "you really know how to make a man feel good. That night, you were something else." The words hit me like a slap to the face, and I froze, staring at him in confusion. "What are you talking about? What night?" Emeka's grin faltered for a moment before he sighed, dropping the facade. The night you and Nnamdi celebrated your promotion. You don't remember? I was the one who slept with you, not Nnamdi. My heart stopped. His words echoed in my mind, but I couldn't make sense of them. You? What? I guessed, stumbling back in disbelief. Emeka's face hardened. I am the father of Chisholm, not Nnamdi. The world around me spun, and I felt the room close in on me. I didn't know what to say, what to do. How was this possible? The man I loved, the man I thought I knew, had allowed this to happen. I watched as Emeka turned to leave, his eyes filled with a cold finality. Don't worry, Adanna. I'll make sure you and my son don't suffer because of this. And with that, he was gone. The silence in the house was deafening. I sat there for what felt like hours, holding Chisholm, still reeling from Emeka's words. How could he have said that? How could he have come into my home and casually declared that he was my son's father? It felt like the world was falling apart around me, like the ground had been pulled from beneath my feet. Nnamdi was out, and I couldn't wait for him to come home. I needed answers. I needed to confront him, but the fear gnawing at me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Could Emeka be telling the truth? I didn't want to believe it, but everything seemed to fall into place. Nnamdi had been overly attentive, almost too perfect, even after I became pregnant. His constant care, the extra effort he made, was it all just a way to cover up the truth? When Nnamdi finally walked through the door that evening, I barely recognized him. His face was tired, his eyes distant. He didn't notice the tension in the air at first. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "How was your day?" I asked, my voice trembling despite myself. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Same old," he said, setting down his bag and walking over to where I was sitting with Chisholm. "How's my boy?" I handed him our son, but my hands were shaking. "Nnamdi, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me with concern. "Of course, babe. What's going on?" "Emeka came by today," I started, watching his face for any sign of guilt. He told me something that I can't ignore. Nnamdi's expression shifted just slightly, but it was enough to make my heart race. He knew what I was about to say. He said he's the father of Chisholm. I forced the words out, feeling them like a weight on my chest. He said it was him, not you. The room seemed to freeze. Nnamdi's face went pale, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. It was as though time had stopped, and in that silence, I could feel the truth pressing down on us both. Finally, Nnamdi sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I was hoping you wouldn't find out this way," he said quietly, his voice strained. I felt my heart shatter as the realization sank in. It's true, isn't it? You did this to me, to us. You let him sleep with me. Nnamdi's eyes filled with regret. "I never meant for it to get this far," he said, his voice cracking. "I thought I could control it. I thought I could make everything go as planned." I shook my head, unable to comprehend what I was hearing. "What are you talking about?" He looked at me, his gaze filled with sorrow. "The night I came home after the promotion, I celebrated too hard. I thought it would be the perfect way to get you pregnant, to finally give my family the child they'd always wanted." He paused, swallowing hard. "I drugged you, Adanna. I put something in your drink, and when you passed out, I had Emeka. Emeka slept with you. Then I stayed beside you so that when you woke up, you would think it was me." The room spun as the words sunk in. "You did what? You manipulated me like that? I trusted you, Nnamdi." I could barely hold back my tears, the betrayal cutting deeper than anything I'd ever known. He reached out, but I pulled away. "You don't get to touch me," I hissed. "You have no idea what you've done. You ruined everything." Nnamdi's face crumpled with guilt, but it did nothing to ease the pain. "I thought it would work. I thought you'd never suspect. But now Emeka won't let it go. He wants Chisholm, he wants to be the father, and he's not going to stop until he gets him." I could barely breathe. My entire world was crumbling, and I didn't know how to fix it. The air in the room was thick with tension. Nnamdi stood there, his eyes desperate, pleading for forgiveness. But it was too much. I couldn't look at him anymore. I couldn't hear any more of his lies. Everything that had seemed so perfect, the love, the promises, the life we'd built, had been shattered in a single moment of truth. "Why, Nnamdi?" I whispered, my voice hoarse with emotion. "Why would you do this to me? To us?" He ran a hand through his hair, his face twisted with remorse. "I didn't want to hurt you, Adanna. I didn't want to be the one blamed for not being able to give my family what they wanted. I knew they wouldn't forgive me. Mama, especially. His voice trailed off, and I could see the pain in his eyes. Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. My heart sank. It was Mama Nnamdi. I hadn't even noticed how tense the atmosphere had become until she walked into the room. She smiled at me at first, but when she saw the look on both our faces, her expression changed. The smile faded, and she looked from Nnamdi to me, her eyes sharp and calculating. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her tone cold as ice. "Nothing, Mama," Nnamdi stammered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. It's not what you think." But Mama Nnamdi was no fool. She could sense the change in the air. "Tell me what's going on right now," she insisted, walking closer to us. Her eyes flicked to the baby in my arms and then back to Nnamdi, her gaze turning sharp. "Why do you both look like you've seen a ghost?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. I didn't want to say it, but it was all I could do to keep the truth from spilling out. "Tell her, Nnamdi," I said, my voice trembling. "Tell your mother what you've done. Tell her what you've kept from both of us." Nnamdi hesitated, looking down at the floor as if ashamed to face the reality of his actions. Then, his voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. "Mama, I can't have children." For a moment, it felt like time stood still. Mama Nnamdi blinked, as if trying to process what he had just said. Her gaze moved from him to me, confusion and disbelief written all over her face. "What? What do you mean, Nnamdi?" "I'm impotent," he confessed, the words heavy in the room. "I can't father children, and that's why I did what I did. I didn't want you to know, Mama. I couldn't bear to disappoint you anymore. I thought if I could just get Adanna pregnant, if I could just make her believe I was the father, everything would be fine." Mama Nnamdi staggered back, her hand flying to her mouth as she processed the words. "So this whole time, you've been lying to me? To your wife? Pretending to be someone you're not?" Her voice trembled with fury, and I could see her composure cracking. "Nnamdi, how could you?" she whispered, her eyes wide with shock. "You let me believe this was all real. You let me blame Adanna for years, and all along, it was you. You could have told me, we could have found another way, but instead, you made your wife the victim." I looked at Mama Nnamdi, my heart aching for the woman who had been so cruel to me for so long, only for me to learn now that she had never known the truth. She had been just as deceived as I was. She fell silent, her anger morphing into something more complicated. Disappointment, confusion, and a bitter sense of betrayal. "I wanted a grandchild," she muttered, shaking her head as she turned away from us. "I wanted to have my son's legacy carried on. But at what cost? What kind of man am I raising, Nnamdi? What kind of life have you built for yourself, for your wife, for your son?" I felt like I was watching everything unravel before me. Nnamdi's life, Mama Nnamdi's shattered illusions, and my own hopes for the future. I held Chisholm tighter, my heart breaking for him, knowing that the world he was born into was filled with lies, and the truth could destroy us all. As I looked at Nnamdi, standing there, broken and defeated, I realized I didn't know this man anymore. He wasn't the man I married, the man I thought would always protect me. He was a stranger, someone whose secrets had poisoned everything we once had. "I can't do this anymore, Nnamdi," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I can't live with this betrayal. You've ruined everything." Mama Nnamdi's eyes flickered toward me, and in that moment, she softened, though only slightly. "Don't leave him, Adanna," she pleaded. "He's my son. I never thought he'd do something like this, but don't leave him to be alone. He needs you." I looked at her, then at Nnamdi, who stood motionless, his face filled with regret. "You've already left me, Nnamdi. This was never about me. It was always about your secret, your shame," I whispered, the words cutting through the silence. I stood, holding Chisholm close, and walked toward the door. I couldn't stay in this house, in this life, anymore. I stood at the doorway, Chisholm cradled in my arms, the weight of everything that had transpired crashing down on me. It felt like I was stepping out of a dream, a nightmare, really. The reality of what Nnamdi had done, of how he had torn apart everything I held dear, was sinking in slowly, too slowly. But it was all too much now. There was no turning back. Behind me, I could hear Nnamdi's voice, trembling and desperate. "Adanna, please, don't leave me. You can't just walk away from everything we've built together. I swear I'll make it right." I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Mama Nnamdi, too, had come closer, her voice pleading, softer now. Adanna, please, he's my son. Don't do this. I know he made a terrible mistake, but he's still my son. He's still family. But I could feel the chasm between us, the lies, the betrayal. How could I possibly forgive them? How could I rebuild a life when the very foundation had been cracked, when everything I thought was true had been a lie? Your son is a coward, I said, my voice breaking slightly despite my resolve. He's a coward who chose to deceive the one person who trusted him most. He couldn't even be honest with me about the truth. He let me carry a lie for all these years, all while pretending everything was fine. How do I go back to that? How do I look at him, knowing what I know? Mama Nnamdi's face twisted in sorrow. She looked at Nnamdi, who stood frozen, his face pale, tears welling up in his eyes. She turned back to me, her tone a mixture of regret and pain. I never wanted to hurt you, Adanna. I was cruel to you when you needed love. I was too blinded by my own hopes for a grandchild that I didn't see what was really happening. But don't leave him. He may not have been honest, but he's still the father of your child. He still needs you, and he's not the only one who's hurt. Her words hung heavy in the air. She was right in some ways. Nnamdi was still the father of my son, and Chisholm deserved a family. But could I ever forgive him for what he had done? Could I trust him again after everything? I can't, I said quietly, my heart breaking. I can't stay here anymore. I can't live in this house of lies. I need to take my son and start over. I can't give Chisholm a life built on this kind of deception. He deserves more. I turned away, the door creaking shut behind me as I stepped out into the night, the cool air biting at my skin. I didn't know where I would go. I didn't know what the future held. But I knew one thing. I couldn't stay where the lies had started, where the betrayal had taken root. Nnamdi's broken cries echoed in my ears, but they did nothing to change my mind. I had given him everything, and in return, he had given me nothing but a web of deceit. I walked down the road, each step carrying me further away from the past, away from the man I once loved. I didn't know where I was headed, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not with Nnamdi, not with the secrets that had destroyed us. Behind me, the house where we had once shared dreams stood silent. And as I walked further, I could feel my heart begin to heal, piece by piece, though the scars would remain forever. I didn't look back.